It was a tense weekend for Baku. Azerbaijan was hosting the annual UN Climate Summit this year. That's the COP29. It was supposed to end on Friday, but the meeting dragged on almost by 33 hours. The issue was climate financing. You see, climate change did not begin in the last decade or even the last 20 years. It's the result of decades of emissions, pollution, and actions that harm the planet. The culprit is the developed world, the rich nations. Their actions led to climate change. So it's obvious that they should be the ones paying for it, sort of like reparations. The developing nations asked for $1.3 trillion every year. 1.3 trillion every year. The rich nations did not agree. This led to weeks of bitter negotiations. The developing countries walked out of the room.
Comment, sir. Sorry.
Comments, anyone?
As you can see,
the West refused to budge, the poorer countries caved. There was no point holding the summit hostage, so a deal was finalized. $300 billion every year till 2035. That's the deal, $300 billion. It's less than 1/4 of what the developing nations wanted. But this is what they had to settle for, a deal that offered too little and too late. They took it, but not without making their displeasure clear, and leading the charge here was India.
Excellency, I regret to say that this document is nothing more than an optical illusion. This, in our opinion, will not address the enormity of the challenge we all face. Therefore, we oppose the adoption of this document. We oppose the adoption of this document.
India accounts for 17% of the global population, 1/7. But when it comes to emissions, India accounts for less than 4%, which places India in a unique position, a position of leadership. India is the world's 5th largest economy. It has emerged as the voice of the global south. It is bearing the brunt of climate change, but also leading with climate action. And New Delhi had a lot of problems with this deal.
Trust is the basis for all action. And this incident is indicative of a lack of trust, a lack of collaboration on an issue which is a global challenge which is faced by all of us and most of all by the developing countries that are not responsible for it. But we've seen what you have done.
The first problem is the amount being offered. $300 billion may seem like a lot of money, but when you think about tackling climate change across the globe, it falls short. India calls it a paltry sum. The second is the way this deal was approved. Yes, member nations agreed on it, but India says the process was managed. New Delhi was not allowed to speak before. It was all rushed. And India, by the way, is not the only one complaining.
That the developing country is saying that it's taking the lead with $300 billion till 2035 is a joke. And it's not something we should take lightly. I do not think it's something we should clap our hands and force us to take it. I do not think so.
The least developed countries and the islands decided to walk out of the room because they don't feel they can engage, their issues were not recognized in the text.
In 2015, developed nations made a promise at the COP summit in Paris. They're obligated to pay vulnerable countries. The initial pledge was $100 billion every year. This new deal promises more. It promises $300 billion. But experts say that the cost of handling climate change has increased dramatically. Today, it is between $1 to $1.3 trillion. Some even call it a war of attrition between the rich and the poor nations. And it's the same story at every COP summit. This was the COP29, the 29th edition. There have been 28 before, but they have little to show for it. The rich overpromise, the poor wait, there's political haggling, and it ends with a bad deal. Now, we get that climate is a tough pill to sell. The world is dealing with 2 wars, one in Europe, the other in West Asia. The global economy is still recovering. There's a cost of living crisis in many countries. So climate change may be the last thing on people's minds. But that does not change the fact that it is happening. and it's affecting all of us. The toxic air in Delhi, that's climate change. The typhoons in the Philippines, climate change again. Dubai's record-breaking rains, Europe's blistering heat wave, floods in Brazil, Kenya and China, cyclones in Bangladesh, rainfall in the Sahara Desert, island nations sinking, all of this is climate change. It's the one thing that does not care about borders or politics. And yet it remains an afterthought. Each summit, each deal is a reminder of what we have not done, of what we are still refusing to do. But the clock is ticking. The planet won't wait for political consensus. The floods will keep coming. The temperatures will keep rising. The sea levels will swallow lives and livelihoods. It's not just about financing, reparations or negotiations. It's about the future of this planet, our home. Unless Elon Musk has his way and builds human settlements on Mars, this is where we will have to live in the years to come. So let's think about it and act.